all can get together as women. It's nice to see full tables, and especially on a Friday night, and you're like, oh, it's just the end of the week. I just want to go home and put my jammies on. So I appreciate you all coming out, and I hope you've already had some great conversations, and I'm sure that will continue as we go through the rest of the night. And I am happy to come and share my story with you, even though it's a little like this for me, but I'm going to just take a deep breath and move on, because there really has been some significant changes in my life in the past couple of years. And if you've known me for a while, I'm sure you're aware of one of those changes. And if you're not, haven't known me for a while, say a year or less, you probably don't know at all. So I thought I should explain, and since they say a picture is worth 1,000 words, that's about 3,000 words. That was me just a few years ago. Those aren't photoshopped. It's not my cousin. It's not my older sister. That really is me. And yeah, so there's been a big change since then. And I have to say that while this is a pretty big change, this is not the most significant change. I think that this really is just the physical manifestation of the other changes that have taken place. And that's really what I want to talk about tonight. So I hope I don't disappoint you when I say I'm not going to talk about dieting. I'm not going to give you my top 10 tips for losing weight and how to keep it off. Because I know from just talking with people everywhere that we all have something. We all have at least that one thing that we struggle with that just kind of bears down on us and eventually brings us to our knees before the Lord, saying, can you please just take this? And while the thing we struggle with might vary from person to person, there's a commonality that we have in that struggle. And so I'm sure as I share my story with you tonight that you'll see yourself in part of that as we go along. So I thought first I should answer, how did that happen in the first place? And oddly enough, I can pinpoint the year. It was 1967. That's me in the middle. Excuse me. I was living in Southwest Philadelphia where I grew up. I was 9 years old, going to Patterson Elementary School. I was in the 3rd grade. And our teacher had given us an assignment that we were to write a description of a fellow classmate and then share it with them. And she was going to partner us up. And I got paired up with a good friend of mine, Rhonda Hines. Now, Rhonda and I were good buddies. We used to walk to school every day together. We'd play at recess and after school. So we were good friends and very excited that we were going to get to do this together. So we got together, wrote our little descriptions, and then we shared them with each other. And I wrote about Rhonda that she was about a medium-height girl, and she had long, blonde, straight hair and blue eyes. And she was kind of shy, but she had a really nice smile. And Rhonda wrote about me that I was really tall, and I had brown, wavy hair and brown eyes, and I laughed a lot, and I was a little on the heavy side. And I heard that, yeah, something right here went, and I thought, I really didn't like that. And it did something to me. I thought, oh, I'm just not enough. You know, there's something wrong. I have to fix this. Because even at 9 years old, I knew that being described as a little on the heavy side was not a good thing, and I didn't want that. And the truth was, excuse me, I was a big kid. As you can see, these are two of my neighbors. We're all the same age. I'm a head taller than the rest of them. And I was always one of the tallest kids in my class. I was like the 2nd or 3rd tallest person all the time. Kim Wade was the tallest one. And I was kind of a sturdily built kid, but I really wasn't overweight, and I certainly wasn't obese. But to Rhonda, who was this tiny little thing, I probably was like Andre the Giant to her. So it made sense, and I knew that Rhonda wasn't trying to hurt my feelings. She wasn't picking on me. It wasn't that. She was just describing me as she saw me. But it really didn't make a difference because I thought I needed to do something about that. Even at 9, I was like a take charge kind of a girl. And so I was like, all right, I need to go on a diet. Where I got that idea, I don't know, because we were not dieting in my house. But I thought that's what I needed to do. And so I went on a diet, and you can imagine the kind of a diet that a 9-year-old would go on. Let's just say it was not Weight Watchers approved. But off I went. And what I didn't realize at the time was I had just punched my ticket to ride the Diet roller coaster, and I would be on that thing for the next 50 years of my life. Yeah. So let's fast forward a few decades, or we'll be here all night. It's 1999. I'm 41 years old. I'm married with 2 lovely daughters. And I'm still a little on the heavy side. Actually, I'm not just a little on the heavy side. I'm kind of made my way into that camp. And in 1999, I was part of what I affectionately called the Old Lady Band. This is me and a few of my friends who got together, excuse me, to form a little musical group. And we would go to various women's events and provide the music for them. So this particular year, it was May of 1999, we were doing a women's conference in New Jersey. And as part of the conference, they had classes that you could attend. And we were invited to attend any class that we felt like. And Saturday afternoon, we decided to break up because we were all interested in different ones. And so I went off to this one class by myself. And while I couldn't tell you what the class was about now, I can certainly tell you what happened because it was a little unusual. I went to the class. It was in a hotel room, just your standard conference room. It's like 20 by 20 with rows all set up. And I sat on like the 3rd row against the wall. And the speaker came and she started talking and everything was fine. It was interesting, you know, nothing unusual. But then about midway through the class, it was as if the room went dark and a little spotlight came on me, because I am a little dramatic. And I heard this voice say, "I can't use you like this." And I said, "Huh? I can't use you like this." And lights come on. Now I'm looking around the room going, anybody else hear that? Anybody else see that? No, just me? Did I have a stroke? What is that? And had I been sitting on the last row, I would have left the room. But I was kind of stuck where I was. So I had to just sit there and puzzle through the rest of the class. I'm thinking, what does that mean? I can't use you like this. What just happened? And you know how you just know something? I just knew that God had just spoken to me. Not in that you're crazy, you need to go see a doctor kind of way. But internally, I knew, everybody looking at everybody else around, that this was just for me. And so I thought, well, what does that mean? I can't use you like this. And I was very confused and a little freaked out. And so when the class was over, I made a beeline for my hotel room. And I sat there just pondering through this. I can't use you like this. What does that mean? And I'm like, God, I'm really confused, because aren't you using me this weekend? Aren't I here at this conference leading worship, praising you, talking about you with other people? Isn't that being used by you? I don't get it. I'm very confused. And then you kind of hit me. I thought, oh, I can't use you like this. Like this probably means because I'm overweight. And I thought, I was crushed, because I thought, if there's one thing in my life that I want, it's to be used by God. Right about then, 2 of my old lady bandmates came back to the room, and they took one look at me and they said, "What happened to you?" And I explained. It just all came tumbling out. And these 2 women were mentors of mine. They were older and wiser in the faith. I just loved them to death. And they sat me down and talked with me for a while and then prayed with me. And despite what they counseled me, I remained determined that what God was saying was that he couldn't use me because I was overweight. And so when we were done, I was like, all right, well, you know what? If God wants me to lose weight, I'm going to lose weight. I'm going to just put a stake in the ground, boom, right now. And it's it. It's done. We're over. Next day, I felt like I needed some time by myself. So when I had a chance, I snuck off to my car, and I just sat in the parking lot for a while. And I just sat there, and it was quiet for a while, and I prayed for a little bit, and I sang some hymns for a little bit, and I prayed some more. And I heard the voice again. And this time it said, "It's finished." And I said, hallelujah, thank you, Jesus. I am glad to hear that, because I am tired of this roller coaster. I can't wait to get off. Yeah. And I kind of hoped that the next day I would wake up and be skinny. But I also thought it's probably not going to work out that way. It's probably going to take a little effort, but I was sure it at least would be different, that there would be some kind of change. Maybe it would go faster, maybe it would go smoother. I didn't know, but I was convinced that it would go differently. Let's fast forward 2 more years. It's 2001. I'm still married with 2 kids, but as you can see, I'm still a little on the heavy side. Actually, I'm now in the heavy camp. And I'm watching a friend of mine. She has joined a program with Riddle Hospital. It's a liquid fast program. And I'm watching her because she is losing a lot of weight quickly, and she and I were kind of in the same boat physically. And so after a while, and after talking to her, I thought, you know what, maybe I should give this a shot too. So I went and signed up for the program, and it started off really well. I was losing a lot of weight really quickly. And things were going along swimmingly till I got about 3/4 of the way done. And then, I don't know how to explain it other than I was not happy. I felt really uncomfortable in my own skin. And I don't know whether it was because I was losing weight so quickly that my brain couldn't keep up with my body, or because there was some other emotional stuff that was happening at the same time, or a combination of that and other stuff added in. I don't really know, but what I do know is I was not a happy camper. I was making people I lived with unhappy, and I just, most of the time, I just wanted to run away and hide. And right around that same time, I got some news. As part of the program, you had to have blood work done every 2 weeks. They wanted to monitor you and make sure you didn't die. So 1 week on my normal routine in, they were going over my numbers, and they said, you know, we're looking at this one set of numbers and it's off. We think you need to go get this checked out. Okay. Make a long story short, it was involving my gallbladder, and it turns out my gallbladder was twisted like a pretzel. And I was probably born that way, but just never had any symptoms. And so I had to have that removed. And as part of that, I had to go off the program. And my reaction to that was, whew, relief. I was glad to hear it, because I was just at my wit's end, and it was, okay, I don't have to do that anymore. And while in the front of my brain, I don't think this was conscious, but it certainly was in the back of my brain, I began to gain the weight back. And as I look back at that, I know exactly what I was doing. I was so uncomfortable before that I wanted to run away and hide. Well, that's what I was doing. And so even though I knew it was unhealthy in the front of my brain, the back of my brain was saying, this is your safe place. This is where you're comfortable. This is what's familiar. This is what you know. I knew how to behave in that arena. And so I was going back to what was familiar. Let's fast forward one more time. It's 2017. Still married with 2 kids. Big grown. And now I'm not only just on the heavy side, I'm on the scary heavy side. And it's March. And I've gotten a phone call. I'd gone for a physical, and I got the results back, and the phone call was to tell me that I was pre-diabetic. And my mom had been a diabetic, so I knew this was not a path I wanted to go down. But I had no idea what to do, because at that point, I was celebrating my golden anniversary of dieting. It had been 50 years. I had been at this forever and tried just about everything that came down the pike except for that cabbage soup diet. And I thought, I don't know what else to do. And so I did the only thing I ever do when I don't know what to do. I prayed, and I looked up to heaven, and I said, God, I got nothing. What do you got? As a matter of fact, you tell me what to do, and I'll do that. And honestly, I was a little feisty when I said it, because I was kind of tired and frustrated. And I thought, it's not like I ever went into a diet going, well, we'll just see how it goes. I'll give it a try and see what happens. No, I went in guns a-blazing. I'm going to do this. I'm determined. I'm focused. And yet here I am in the same spot. So I said, all right, Lord, I'll tell you what. I'm not going to do anything until you tell me what to do. I'm going to just sit right here and wait. And when you tell me what to do, I'll do it. And in my sanctified imagination now, I look back on that moment and I see Jesus in heaven going, yes, it's about time. I've been waiting 50 years for you to say that. Because right then is when things started to change. Because in that moment, I put myself in the right position with the Lord. And it didn't take long. It was like 5 minutes. And I get this thought, the fasting program. And I went, no. You have got to be kidding me. I'm like, Lord, don't you remember? That did not end well. I was miserable. I'm making people around me miserable. And I took a vow. Do you remember that? I took a vow. I did my best Scarlett O'Hara impression, and I said, as God is my witness, I will never do this program again. I'm like, do you remember that, Lord? And I thought, you know what? That was probably just me because I'm feeling a little desperate, and desperate people do desperate things, and that program is certainly desperate. So I will just wait. I will wait on the Lord, and He will speak to me, I am sure, later. So I decided to go about my day. And as I did, the whole rest of the afternoon, it was as if I had the little drummer boy in my head going, the fasting program, the fasting program, the fasting program. So that by dinner, I'm like, all right, we got to deal with this. I thought, I know what I'll do. I'll tell Jim. He'll remember. Jim is my husband, for those of you who don't know. I'm like, he'll remember. He'll know. I'm sure he remembers Scarlett. And I can just tell him, he'll tell me I'm crazy, and we can put this aside. So that night after dinner, the two of us are sitting on the couch, same couch, and I said, something weird happened today. And I tell him the whole story. And when I was done, he says, well, maybe you should look into that. What? I said, are you nuts? He said, don't you remember how that happened last time? It did not end well. Don't you remember I was miserable? I made you miserable. Don't you remember Scarlett? And he said, well, it has been like 15 years. I would bet things have changed since then. Maybe you should investigate. Fine. Well, I am spiritual. And so God has told us we should confirm these things. So I called my best friend. We got to get together. And so a couple days later, we get together for lunch. And I'm thinking, she was there. She'll remember. She held my hand. She remembers Scarlett. And I said, I'll tell her. She'll tell me I'm nuts. We can put this aside. So we have lunch. And over lunch, I tell her the whole story. When I'm done, she puts her fork down, folds her little hands, looks me straight in the eye and said, well, that's interesting, because I was going to talk to you about the very same thing today. What? Fine. I'm like, okay. So I went home, made a few phone calls, made an appointment, went and checked it out. Sure enough, it had changed. It had moved from Riddle Hospital, 10 minutes from my house, to Paoli Hospital, 45 minutes from my house. Thank you very much. And it was no longer a liquid fast program solely. There was other elements to it now, and they added some other things in, but honestly, it really didn't matter, because at that point I was pretty sure this is what God wanted me to do, and I said, you tell me what to do, and I'll do it. So I signed on the dotted line. And in that moment, just like I didn't know when I was 9 years old that I just punched my ticket to get on the diet roller coaster, I had no idea that that was the moment I got off. Because that was the moment I really put my faith into action and put myself in the position where I should have been in the first place. Because here's the thing with me and God. It's not like I haven't included Him in my life before. I have known Jesus my entire life, it seems. I've known Him longer than I have been on a diet. My mom raised us in the church. I'm sure I was in the nursery as an infant. And I remember distinctly being in kindergarten or first grade. I was just a little itty bitty. And in Sunday school, and they would tell us the stories of Jesus and the Holy Spirit and God. And this one particular Sunday, our Sunday school teacher told us about Jesus in just a different way. And when he was done, he said, if anybody would like Jesus to come and live in their hearts, I want you to raise your hand. And my hand went right up. And from that day on, God has been in my life in a big way. And as I've grown in faith and knowledge of him, my understanding of what that relationship is all about has grown as well. I began to understand he doesn't want to just visit with me on a Sunday morning for an hour. He wants to be a part of my daily goings on every day. All the good, all the bad. He wants to be a part of all of that. And so I've included him in that, especially when it came to dieting. So when I would go on a diet, I would always talk to the Lord, and I would say something like, God, something's got to be done about this. I need to go on a diet. Can you please help me? Can you help me get to my goal? Can you just do something with this? Next. God, I'm going to go on Weight Watchers. It looks like a really good program. Something I can follow for the rest of my life. Can you help me with this? Can you help me reach my goal? Next. God, I'm going to do Jenny Craig. It's January. They're running a special. I like the idea of this program because you don't have to think about it. That you just show up, they hand you the food, you take it home, eat it, you're done. Can you help me get to my goal? Can you help me put this behind me, by me, please? Next. God, I'm going to do a Beth Moore study. She's got one out called Breaking Free. It's about breaking the strongholds in your life, and this certainly looks like a stronghold to me. So, can you please help me? Can you teach me what I need to know so I can finally be done this? It's Beth Moore, Lord. Do you see a difference between those prayers and the prayer I prayed that March? Because I sure do. In these prayers, it's as if I'm saying, God, I've got my car washed, it's all gassed up, I got my GPS plugged in, I know where I'm going, I know exactly how I'm going to get there. You want to come along for a ride? Come on, you can ride shotgun. And in the other one, I'm saying, God, I have no idea where I'm supposed to go or how I'm supposed to get there. My GPS is broken. As a matter of fact, I don't even have a car. Can I ride with you? Can I just get in the back seat and you take me wherever it is you want me to go? Can I do that? Huge, life-changing difference. In the first one, I'm trying to lead Jesus. I was never called to do that. In the second one, I've got the position right. I'm in the back seat allowing him to lead me, taking me wherever it is he wants me to go. Huge, life-changing difference. And that's the moment things started to change. The first thing that happened is that I noticed a difference in how I approached this diet. I talk about those 50 years of dieting as my wilderness years. I identified with the Israelites, just wandering around trying to figure out what to do next and where to go. And that was not wasted time, though, because all during those years, God was teaching me stuff. And I might be a slow learner, but I was learning things. And one of the things that I learned was, I am not just merely a physical being. And every diet I ever went on, I only took it from a physical standpoint. What am I supposed to eat? What am I not supposed to eat? What am I supposed to do for exercise? How much water am I supposed to drink? Purely on the physical thing. But there's more to me than that. I'm also an emotional being, and I'm also a spiritual being. And one of the things that God taught me was, if I want to get healthy, I have to get all of me healthy. I can't just focus on one part and ignore the other 2/3. And so going into this diet, I had already done some of that work. I'd been to counseling to deal with some of the emotional things that were going on. I'd made connections spiritually to help with that. So right off the bat, I could see something that was different. That was not on my GPS. The next thing that happened is I lost weight. Ooh, that was the whole idea, right? But it was the way I was losing weight that I did not expect, and neither did anybody else. In the program that I'm on, it's called New Direction. And if you were to plot how most people lose the weight, if this was their starting weight and there's just their ending weight, and this is the time they're on it, it would look something like this. Okay, just this little jagged line, lots of little plateaus, little gain, little lose. If you looked at my chart, my starting point to my ending point, you could take a ruler and draw a line straight down. In the 52 weeks that I was on the weight loss portion of this plan, I lost weight for 51 of those weeks. The 1 week I didn't was the week before I hit my goal weight, and I stayed exactly the same to the ounce. That doesn't happen. They call me the unicorn. So that was not on my GPS, but I was happy. But that's not the only thing that happened. Around September, I started the program in April, and around September, I lost enough weight that people were noticing. Lots of people were noticing. Everywhere I went, people were noticing, and they were asking me the same 5 questions over and over again. And it would go something like this. Ooh, are you losing weight? How much weight have you lost? What are you doing? How long did it take you? Where do I sign up? Same questions over and over and over again. Everywhere from the deli counter to the pharmacy, in my neighborhood walking the dog, didn't matter. In the mall with strangers, people who knew me to look at me but didn't know my name would stop me and say those 5 words, losing weight. And so by the end of September, I was like, enough already. And so at dinner one night, I announced, I think I'm going to write a blog. And Holly, my daughter, says, oh, that's a great idea, Mom. I think you should. And I said, great. What's a blog? Because I really didn't know. I knew what it was conceptually, but I didn't know how it worked. I didn't know how you set one up. All I knew was I had information that other people wanted, and I wanted a more efficient way of getting it out. And so Holly kindly explained to me what a blog was. And the more she talked, the more I thought, I'm not sure I want to do that. But I also got more of a feeling that this is something I should do. And the reason I didn't want to do it was because I don't like to write. And writing is kind of a part of being a blogger. And I thought, well, it seems to me this is something the Lord wants me to do. So I was like, all right, God, if this is something you want me to do, I'll make a deal. I'm making deals with God. Not the brightest bulb in the box. I said, Lord, if you want me to do this, that's fine, but you're going to have to tell me what to write. Because you know, I don't like to write. I have no idea what to write. But I'm willing to take dictation. I used to be a secretary. I could do that. The other rule I had was really for me, not for God. And that was I wanted to be honest. Which seems kind of obvious. You don't start writing a blog to lie. But what I meant by that was I wanted to be transparent. Which is also another problem for me. Because I've been told numerous times over the years that I'm a little difficult to know. That it's hard to get to know me. I'm a little closed off, a little private. I'm okay with that, for the most part. But I thought, if this is something God is calling me to do, I have a feeling at some point He's going to want me to go, here I am. And I needed to be okay with that. So I took a little time to think about it and have a little conversation with myself about it. And I was like, okay, we can do this. And so the end of September, I started writing this blog. It's called Through Thick and Thin. And it has been an adventure. I don't like to write. The first beginning parts of this were difficult. It would take me a week to write 1 page. You know, I never kept a journal as a kid. I never kept a diary. I'd start, I'd write, Dear Diary. Oh, that's enough for one day. And yet here I was, writing. Now, in the beginning,
I was the only one reading it. And I was totally okay with that because I thought, I'm 59, I'm starting to forget stuff. And God was teaching me some really great lessons, and I didn't want to forget any of them. So I thought it's good to have a record. But eventually, other people found it. How? I'm not really sure. But they did. And by the end of 2018, I had over 170 followers. And that just means these are people who have signed up to get an email from me every time I write a blog. It just goes to their inbox. Now, in the blogosphere world, 170 some people is pretty small. But in my world, it's huge. Would I have talked to 170 people about the intimacy of my journey? I don't think so. Not on my GPS. But that's not all. You don't have to sign up for an email to visit my blog. You can just go right to the website. That part had over 5,000 people reading it in 22 different countries, including China and India. And apparently I'm a hit in Ireland. Would I have talked to 5,000 people last year? Not on my GPS. I certainly wouldn't have visited China or India. Crazy. But that's not all that happened. In February, so I started in April, this is now February, I hit my goal weight in April. So I haven't gotten there yet, but I'm getting close. At my center, the administrator pulled me aside one day and she said, we were wondering, would you be willing to come and speak to the classes here? And I said, why? So I'm like, I haven't even hit my goal weight yet. That doesn't make any sense. And she said, well, we thought it would be a good idea if we had somebody who's actually on the program come and share their experience. And you're having a pretty good one. And we think you have something to say. And then it occurred to me, I knew the entire staff at my center had been reading my blog. So they knew what I wrote about. And I wrote about this approach of physical, emotional, and spiritual. And I'm very upfront about talking about God and all of this. So I said, you know my approach, right? Yes. And you're okay with that, right? Yes. I'm like, all right. Well, God, if this is you and you're opening the door, I'll walk through it. This is not on my GPS. I'm not used to talking to adults. I'm a former teacher. I'm used to talking to third graders. So I said, I'll just pretend everybody's 10 and it'll be fine. And so I said, okay. And then that February, I did meet with 4 different classes that day. I talked to about 100 people. And I got to share a part of my story with them, including the part about Jesus. Not on my GPS. No. That's not all. I also discovered a group. It's a national group. It's a Facebook group of people who are also on this program. And I know it's generally a good idea if you can get together with people who are struggling the same struggle you're struggling with. And so when I found this group, I thought, it's probably be a good idea to join. The only problem is it's a closed group, which means that the only people who can see what's posted are the people in the group. So from the outside, you can't check it out ahead of time. You have to get in it. So I thought, well, what I got to lose? I'll go ahead and I'll join, and we'll see what it's like. So I did. And after about a week, I'm thinking, I don't think this is the right place for me. Because no offense to my Facebook friends who might watch this later, but it was kind of a whiny, complaining place. Jude knows, because she's on there too. And I thought, I think I need to exit stage right. Because this is hard enough. I don't need the negativity. And then I had this thought, I wonder what would happen if I became an encourager. And then I laughed because I knew that was not my fault, my thought, because that does not come naturally to me. I am a task-oriented person. If you were here this past Sunday, you know that's true. If you saw me with those Christmas decorations. Yeah. And Jim calls me the little general. He'll say, take that hill, and I'll say, yes, sir, and off I go. And I don't really think about the people in my wake. I just, I have a task that needs to be done. And it's not that I don't like people or that I can't encourage people, it's just, it's not my first thought. So when I thought that thought, I knew exactly where it came from, and I was like, all right, Lord, if you want me to do this, I'll give it a shot. Encouraging people, it's a skill, I can learn it. So I went on this Facebook page, and I would go on daily, and I would play a little game with myself. And I'd say, let's see how many people I can encourage today. And what can I do globally for the group as a whole to encourage them? And little by little, it did not take long. Within, I'd say, a month, 2 months, I started noticing a change in the tenor of the group. And now it's one of the most supportive places that I can go. It's amazing. And people are supporting each other, not just in words, but in deeds. It's really cool to be a part of that. Do I think that has anything to do with me? No, I don't. But I'm sure glad that I got to be a part of what was happening, that I was used in that way. But that's not all. As part of that group, I met somebody, my friend Jude over here. We call her the warrior. I'm sorry, as she took a bite. I timed that really well. Jude and I hit it off right away online, and just, we were kindred spirits. And we decided we needed to meet. And it turns out that she lives not too far from where I used to live when I lived in New Jersey. So I knew exactly where she was. I'm like, I'm coming. So we got together one afternoon, shared our stories with each other, and just had a great time. And part of when we were walking around, we said, gee, wouldn't it be fun if we could get more of us together from that group? And if we could just, even just the New Jersey, Delaware, Pennsylvania group, we could come together. And so when I got home, I thought, all you need to do is pick a date and something to do, and people will come. I mean, look at tonight. And so I talked to some other people, and we ended up deciding that we would do a painting party. We had it here at the church. And as part of that, I thought, we need some lovely party gifts. And so I thought, last November, before Thanksgiving, I wrote a piece called To Gobble or Not to Gobble. And it was about how to get through the holidays while still on this program. And I thought, well, it's been a year. I could probably update that, turn it into a little one-page pamphlet to hand out to everybody, and they could take that with them. Or if we had time and wanted to talk about it, we could do that. So I sat down to write, and I started writing. 40 pages later, I'm like, whoops. What do I do now? It's not a one-pager. I don't like to write. I don't know how to edit. What do I do with this? I can't tell you exactly what happened because honestly, it's kind of a blur, and I would just as soon leave it that way. But I can tell you within a 2-week period, it went from an idea of a one-page pamphlet to a book available on Amazon. Crazy. Not on my GPS. But I couldn't help it. I literally would sit down and my fingers would start to go. And people were contacting me, people I haven't heard from in a long time, and other people that I had no idea knew anything about this stuff. And they didn't. They researched it for me and said, hey, I thought of you. I thought you might want to know how to do this. And I have a book. And in that 2-week period, I have to be honest and tell you, it was a little stressful. But at the same time, I'm laughing my head off because I know this has nothing to do with me. And this is something God wants. And I'm like, you know what, God, you must really want somebody to have this book by Christmas. I don't know who, but I'm sure they got it. None on my GPS. I have no idea what God has in store for me next. But I can't wait. This has been the best ride I've ever been on. And I can't wait to see where he takes me next. And remember that incident in 1999 where I thought God was trying to tell me he can't use me because I was overweight? I finally figured it out a couple months ago. Not the brightest bulb in the box. And I'm sure you all figured the same thing, that God was not telling me that he couldn't use me because I was overweight. Because let's face it, God used all kinds of people. He used cowards and liars and murderers and prostitutes and short, fat, bald men. I didn't think he could use a pudgy woman. No, that's not what he was saying at all. That's not what my friends were trying to tell me, and I refused to believe it. I think what he was trying to say was, I can't use you like this because you're in my spot. You're trying to do my job. Get out the way, woman. And when I finally did that, that's when this happened. What about you? Where are you? Whose car are you driving? And just so you know, this is not a one tiny thing. This is a continual battle for control. As my family will attest, I love to drive. I like to be behind the wheel. I'm comfortable there. I'm in control. And every so often, even though I have backed up and released and said, all right, I belong in the back seat, every so often I find myself sneaking up front. And that's right next to Jesus, trying to take that wheel. And I'll get my hand slapped. Just happened recently. And I go, release. I'm getting in the back where I belong. What about you? Are you white knuckling it? I hope that I can save you some time. That it won't take you 50 years to figure it out. That we all need to go, release. Jesus, take the wheel. This is yours. This is your job. One of my favorite verses I learned as a kid gives me so much more meaning now. Trust in the Lord with all your heart. Lean not on your own understanding, but in all your ways acknowledge him, and he will make your path straight. That's not my job. That's his job. The path is his. My job is to trust. Trust and obey. There is no other way to be happy in Jesus but to trust and obey. Let's pray. Heavenly Father, what a journey you have taken me on. I thank you, Jesus. I thank you for 50 years of that. I thank you that you did not leave me alone wandering through the desert. You were right there with me, just like you were with the Israelites, lighting them by day and being with them at night. And Father God, I thank you for the lessons and that you've allowed me to be a part of other lessons and other journeys that people have been on. And I pray for the women who are here tonight. And I pray, Lord, that as we all struggle for that control, that you would help us to release and allow you to take the wheel. Allow you to have that control in our own lives. Help us to trust you more. Help us to love you more. Help us to love each other. We love you, Jesus. Amen. Amen.